Welcome to our fourth edition of Sunday School, where we are raising money to do a guaranteed basic income in Nashville. If you've been rocking with us for this long, so glad to have you back. If this is your first time watching the episode, so happy to have you here. Couple of things though. Last week, we talked about how a guaranteed basic income can intersect with housing and actually start to improve the housing in Nashville. We had two organizers. We had Cecilia with Workers Dignity. We had Jackie Sims from PATH. Today, we got two community organizers that's going to talk about how guaranteed basic income can restore the dignity of our communities. We have two great community organizers, Davie Tucker, pastor of Beech Creek, then also Black Nashville Assembly Representative Erica Perry, both community organizers, both dedicated to the spirit. So you might be asking yourself, how can we use a guaranteed basic income to disrupt poverty? And we have three very succinct ways. One, we're going to create a pilot that invests in North Nashville over 1 year. Two, we're going to track the impact of that guaranteed basic income with researchers. And then three, y'all, we're going to publish findings and a roadmap for other communities to actually get a guaranteed basic income done in their community members, in their communities. So if you're rocking with that, live studio audience, if you're rocking with that, let's go on and clap it up. Let's clap it up for that. So before we get into this beautiful, robust conversation around the harm that racism, anti-blackness, and white supremacy has done to our communities and how we can restore the dignity of our black communities intentionally, before we get into that conversation, we have a great reading by a great poet, all-around creative, Ciona Rouse.
I want a president who lives in the policy area of social welfare. A Congress whose zip code is 3721 living wage. A Supreme Court whose chambers are tiny houses for people chronically without homes. On Mondays, they pass a plate of cornbread and collards with a vet who hit hard times named Alan before they hand down any of their opinions. May they say, "Thank you, Alan. Have a great day, Alan. I love you, man," before any decisions get made. And if the governor's going to have a mansion, may its foundations be childcare. Its opulent doors be made of evening hours so mamas and daddies can confidently walk through to opportunities any time of day. May they decorate their homes with sticky handprints on the wall from popsicle juice. May they get lost in the room of giggles, find their way to the bathroom of scraped knees and practice the joy of healing. I want a mayor whose sidings are jobs, whose shingles are jobs, whose chimneys and landscaping and light fixtures and upstairs renovation are jobs, who's so covered in jobs all she can think about is more ways to help more people make a living. Whereas no one making a living finds it hard to live, whereas no tax breaks for companies breaks the backbone of neighborhoods. I want a vice president who lives next door to my grandma, shucks peas on the porch as the sun goes down, talking about her boss and the kids down the street. I want every senator living in temples, churches, and synagogues, whereas their wallpaper echoes prayers all day. And may they all, president, senator, governor, councilperson, school board, and chief of the former police, live next door to artists, whereas the artist makes them stop and admire a bird, praise the wisdom of wings, whereas the artist points out how much purple is in the bark of a tree, whereas an artist obsesses over the moon when it's red and paints the night sky with every color on her palette, whereas an artist reminds them of rhythm and rhyme and the reasons for dance. Let it therefore be resolved that our leaders throw their hands up and move, resolved that they sing, resolved that they see, resolved that they stop trying to paint their homes in profits and instead try a fresh coat of humanity. Let it be therefore resolved that we shall live in a country that every day inches closer to free.
Yeah, give it up for Ciona Rouse. Give it up for Ciona Rouse. We want to make sure, like, every single time that we do this, that we're also bringing to you creative expression. So we're about to get into a great conversation, but before we get into it, I just want to mention once again, we are one of the only pilots in the country that are people-centered, people-led. So that's why it's very important that if we're going to get this done, we're going to get this done via the people. So I'm going to ask you again, if you hear anything that resonates with you, that moves you, that you really consider donating to Moving Nashville Forward, because we need every single thing that we possibly can to make sure our communities can be well resourced, and that a guaranteed basic income is something that we can actually provide as a tool to disrupt poverty in Nashville. So we are one of several pilots that are dedicated to changing the narrative around poverty. And there's a couple of others that I want to mention, because the narrative is so important when we talk about a guaranteed basic income. The first one is Magnolia Mothers Trust, who is giving a guaranteed basic income in Mississippi to single mothers living in public housing. And another one is the Abundant Birth Project, who is giving guaranteed basic income to pregnant women to ensure that they can deliver healthy babies. So there are so many different type of ways that a guaranteed basic income can be applied to actually solving problems that people are experiencing on the ground. So once again, in Nashville, we are doing this with people's dollars. So if you feel anything that is said up here and you are so moved, please donate to us. But we're about to get into a beautiful conversation with two folks that I very hold dear to my heart. And we're going to kick it to them. We're going to get this conversation started. So the first question, really quickly, and these are two organizers that are very involved in movement work in Nashville, is what brings you to this work? So if you can say your name, your pronouns, and then what brings you to this work.
Davie Tucker, us. I'm built for this. That's what brings me to this work, is the realization that I'm committed to human thriving, not just surviving. And it becomes a all-encompassing quest to try to disrupt the systems and things that are in place that cause human suffering.
Beautiful. Yes, hey, I'm Erica Perry. I use any pronouns. Really happy to be here. Member of the Black National Assembly. Yeah, shut up.
Oh, she got friends and all.
Right. No. What brings me to this work? I think one huge thing is I believe that it's community organizing that would transform our conditions. And so it's deep love and rage that brings me to this place. And the way I channel that is through community organizing and movement lawyering. And, you know, to answer that question, I think you also say, like, who are your people? And so my people bring me to this work. My people are rural Black people from Paris, Tennessee. And in that also, I mean all people who are in Tennessee. I think about that. So folks who are rural, who live in rural and urban cities, brings me to this work. People who are incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, queer and trans folks, brings me to this work, working class people. And so I'm here because I believe that we, as Pastor Tucker said, deserve to thrive and live with dignity. And so we're going to have to organize our way into that world.
For sure. Y'all give it up for them. Y'all give it up for them. And that beautiful. So, like I said before, today's theme is dignity. We're really talking about how a guaranteed basic income can intentionally restore folks' dignity where that's been stripped away from them from several different things, right? We mentioned racism, anti-Blackness, bad public policies, all of that stuff. So this conversation will hold a bunch of that, but also we're going to talk about how we can move it forward. So question, real fast, just a baseline. What does the word dignity mean to you? And either one of you all can take that. Just what does it mean?
Well, I guess for me, I have to just put it in context. You have a confluence of society and self. Society often feels that it's the apparatus to ascribe worth, because the self oftentimes does not have the agency to give it self-worth. And so this idea of dignity, yes, society ought to respect people in certain ways, but then the self has to, even in suffering, even in lack, even in scarcity, the self must exert itself that there is some basic worth to just being alive and present in this world. So it's a dance between the two. And often with poor folk, we're left alone to try to find worth in ourselves when the voices and the noise around us often say that we don't have it.
Yeah, and I'll just build on that because I definitely agree with that. I think as a part of that, like dignity means having the autonomy and self-determination and to move throughout the world.
Right.
And to do that, we have to have the resources and things need to be accessible for us to be in our full dignity. And so that's what I would just add to what Pastor Took already said.
And I think that's beautiful because I think you lead us straight to the next piece, right? With that, it's like, how do public policies that we experience in Nashville, how does that extract dignity, or how does that put us in a situation where normal everyday working class people, right, are not able to live in the most dignified way that they possibly can? And I think both of you all kind of went there, but if you can go there even more directly.
Yeah, I think a few examples of like policies and institutions that extract dignity from our communities, especially communities who exist on the margins, so like Latinx, Black, Indigenous communities, cash poor, working class folks. And so one aspect of that is like in I'll give like housing for example, right? And so the housing that people have access to is dependent on how much money you make, right? That creates a sense of extracting folks from their dignity and telling people like you don't deserve to live in nice housing if you don't make over, I think in Nashville you gotta make over $75,000 to even get accessible and dignified housing. One other way that I think we extract dignity from our communities through public policy or the lack of like regulation, I think is in forcing people to choose between whether they're going to pay for their medicine or pay for childcare, right? And then, one example, we might find that a parent might say, well, I need to pay for this medicine because I need to live, which means I can't pay for childcare, which means when I go to my interview, my child might have to stay in the car, and we know they're going to be safe, but then, the police going to charge them if they see that, right? And so we see the way that policies and the lack of regulation force our people into undignified situations and then put them in front of district attorney's office or district attorneys who then at the same time take away their power and tell them that to right this wrong, we want you to pay a fine and fee or spend a few days in jail. And so I think like in every aspect of that, we can see that our people in communities, especially communities who are working class and cash poor, are criminalized for that. Right? And then dignity extracted from them because being forced to choose between many times the lesser two evils.
Right.
All of that.
Yeah.
And I would add to that institutions and systems show us what's really important when we look at the Nashville budget and how funds are allocated, when we look at other systems and sometimes even the church that often tell us what it's against and never talk about what it's for. So these systems and these institutions bring their power to bear on the people who don't participate, aren't allowed to participate, and so we end up ascribing them no worth. Yeah. So it's a challenge that public policy dictates the quality of life. It's a challenge that public religion and public theology dictate in society who's valuable and who's not. When you have churches who are just grossly homophobic, then by virtue it says, God says that you have no worth. When the city says we'll give Oracle tax breaks for the next 30 years, but we will not expend these funds to build affordable housing, of which we're 35,000 units behind. All that plays out in and on our bodies. Whenever you get through the policies that institutions do, we bear them on our bodies. Policing shows up on our bodies. I wish I could get a Delkey deal because you bear that on your body. And not having adequate housing, you bear that on your body. And so we often separate that into classes, but it's really the stuff we put on each other's bodies.
For sure. Thank you for that. And I think both of you kind of queued up something that is very important about the Guaranteed Basic Income pilot here, right? We are demonstrating to the city, because this Guaranteed Basic Income pilot is unlike any other one in the country, where it is also being financed by people, just everyday working class people that see this as an issue and also believe that a Guaranteed Basic Income is a tool that we can have in our tool belt to start solving these problems. So what we really are trying to do is we want to demonstrate to the city, deliver the findings, and hopefully guide towards public policy, right? Because we know that in order to do it for every Nashvilleian that is struggling with these things, it's going to have to be held down by the city and the local government. We know that we cannot nonprofit our way out of these situations.
Absolutely not.
The only way we can is through intentional and direct policy, and that's why I want you all to go next, is how does a guaranteed basic income, no strings attached, how does that start to solve the issues that you all see in the community, and how can that intentionally rebuild our communities that have been suffering from decades of disinvestment?
Well, initially for me, we have to change the narrative. No one chooses to be born in scarcity.
Right.
It's not like there's some universal lottery going on.
Right.
It's the actions of others before that set up the conditions for everyone that comes after.
For sure.
The fact that there is abject poverty, the fact that it is disproportionately situated in black and brown and poor white communities says that we are responsible for that. And when you have jobs, and I hear that there are thousands of jobs, but half of them are not 40 hours.
Right.
Half of them don't have benefits.
Right.
Half of them require folk to split up hours. So the idea of a guaranteed basic income is what I think we owe each other, just like we owe each other health care. And the irony is the people who have the decision making, this doesn't affect them. So they don't care. So we have these nationalistic myths of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, which is a sack of shit. We have these national myths that, particularly in the black community, I have to be twice as good.
Right.
That is so unfair.
Yep.
That the requirement that I have to even have a shot, not a guarantee, is to be twice as good. So I think that to help folk understand the importance of a guaranteed basic income, we have to relook at the narrative, and that is the affected folk too.
For sure.
Because we get pushback on that from everywhere because we've bought in that maybe some of this is my fault.
Right.
We've bought into that this is how things are. No, we have the haves and the have-nots, and nobody asked the hard question, what is enough?
Right. Yeah.
Thor, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think about this question in two ways. I'm trying to situate it in my mind. There's both the opportunity that a guaranteed basic income offers to repair the harm of extracting our dignity from us. And then I think about a guaranteed basic income as a pillar, right, in creating a world where all of us can live with dignity. So I think about, and I'm gonna try to break it down in two ways, but I just want to name that so I can start it out.
Take your time.
Okay. So when I say that a pillar, I think that a guaranteed basic income is just one aspect, one piece of policy that we would need to actually make sure our people can live dignified lives. And so we think about a guaranteed basic income and making sure, again, one example, a person doesn't have to choose between healthcare and childcare, right? And so that they can have both. They have the money for both.
Right.
I think that addresses that issue. But at the same time, we think about making sure our people have enough money to actually live full lives, and creating policy that begins to address the housing crisis, right? So these things have to, I'm getting my policy bag. I would think about it being like a package deal, right? So it's like we have the guaranteed basic income, so that folks can, if they need time off, they have that, right?
Right.
Especially if they're paid hourly. And then I think also we're like, okay, well, we found through our basic income study that one of the issues people have is lack of access to dignified and humane housing. And so we think about, okay, well, then we have to include housing reform, right? And then we think about, okay, well, maybe we should expand folks' access to child care, like Head Start, right? And then I might think about, I think there's one more example, healthcare, right? So how do we regulate the healthcare industry so that, folks don't have to pay $200 for medicine? Like, that seems wrong to me. And so I want to make sure that folks know that the fight for a guaranteed basic income and dispel that myth, because some people are like, just give people the money they need, but we don't have to address the other issues. No, we don't have to address the totality of what it means to live in a society that believes that you should not have access to the things you need because somebody, McDonald's think you deserve $7.25 an hour. Although they moving on that because people organized.
Right.
And then I just want to go to the reparations piece because that's important. Because I've heard folks use and say a guaranteed basic income is reparations, and I just want to name that I think that it could be a piece of it.
Right.
But reparations requires that we look at the harm that is being done, stop it, and then guarantee that we won't continue it. So I think if we think about, y'all talk a lot about the interstate, right, being run through North Nashville.
Right.
That was harmful, continues to be harmful. So I can see a guaranteed basic income being a piece, right, of a package to say, well, let's make sure that both we address the interstate, and so there's one, let's be creative about creating policies that would address the harm of the interstate, and then say we guarantee that we won't do anything like that. Maybe we're gonna practice participatory democracy, and we're gonna ask people to vote together on whether they want something like that in their neighborhood, instead of being racist and deciding we're gonna throw it through there. And then say, to repair the harm, let's give folks money who lived in that community, right? And I would add to that, because we know that the poverty that was in that community created the conditions for our people to be incarcerated, right? They were like, we're going to disrupt your community and then throw police officers in there. So let's also address that harm by reducing the size and scope of policing in their neighborhood. It's just important that I name that, because I don't want us to think that guaranteed basic income is an easy way out, right?
Right.
It's a part of a broader movement to restore our people in their true dignity. And I think that people should invest in it, right? If we believe that our community should be transformed, I think this is a key component of it.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah.
I'm sitting there trying to take little notes. You're saying so much. You're saying so much over here. Because I do think it's not to be confused with reparations. But again, I think we have to understand our own history of what this idea of America is. You have the isness and the altness of America. And part of that reparations is born out of that isness, that you got folk who are 400 years behind.
Right.
You have folk who have generational resources that are passed on amongst the family. And so suddenly you tell me all is equal. It's not equal. You need to repair me for the damage that you exacted on my body. Again, it comes back to the body. And so, even we got things we say, well, poor folks, and they act like crabs in a barrel. And when one try to get out, they put them back. Well, there's a deeper thing to that analogy. Crabs had to be put in a barrel.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be in one.
Right.
See, they were never supposed to be in a barrel anyway.
Right.
So we need to find out who put the crabs in the barrel. And so who created this need for a guaranteed basic income? It is the systems, the policies, and the customs and the practices of what it means to live in America that says some people will and some people won't. Some people can and some people will not be able to. And guaranteed basic income is part of a larger plethora of social reforms if we're going to respect the dignity of all humanity in a way that allows us to thrive and not just survive. So.
Yeah, I think y'all both got to a piece, especially around like the narrative piece, right? Because so many of our community members don't even know about the interstate, right? Oftentimes when they talk about transit in our city, they don't mention that the interstate was put into place where the Corps of Engineers told them not to put it. Literally, like, do not put this here. You're gonna cause traffic. Right. And so I think like even when we talk to community members around the guaranteed basic income, it was very important that we rooted in the narrative that the city drove an interstate through our communities, right? Caused over 600 families to lose their homes, and made 80% of black businesses close.
My God.
Right? Which is a traumatic experience that we still live through today. And so I think it's like even important that Erica was even talking about the intervention piece, because there's an intervention right there already, because we need to struggle with who did it, right? Who ended our communities in that way? Who put all of those issues with the conditions, right? We already know that it was racist city planning, right?
It was city planning. Was it also the state or just the city?
It was the city.
Okay.
Right? Even if we go deeper into the historical episode, the city council hearing where they made the decision, right? They invited the residents of North Nashville to a different one where the decision was already made.
Yeah.
So even when having a conversation with community members, it was like, because they want to go to representation, it was like, it wasn't the representation fault. They even told the community members to go to a different one. So in all of this, I think we have to grapple with and struggle through that historical narrative so that we can even start the intervention piece, right? And then I liked the point that Erica, I think you said so gracefully about how we can literally use the data to start identifying these other places where those root causes are, and we can actually still fix those root causes while we're doing the guaranteed basic income. So I'm curious about what you all two are how you're gonna answer this next question. So what does it look like to fully fight for a guaranteed basic income, and what does the win look like? And you all kind of talked about it already, but I'm curious on how that question impacts you and what you think.
I think, and I would even like situate it in like, what does it look like to fight for a guaranteed basic income with dignity?
For sure. Thank you for that.
Because I was thinking about Ella Baker, and who told us, strong people don't need strong leaders, or who told us that like people who are, and Ella Baker, organizer, NAACP, SNCC, the list goes on. But taught us about the foundation of community organizing, that people who are most impacted because of their experiences actually know the solutions. And our job as organizers who are both impacted by it, but also commit ourselves to organizing, is to organize our people, right? Together, folks who are directly impacted, and be like, we want you to lead us through this win, right? And be like, yo, how would a guaranteed basic income how would a guaranteed basic income transform your conditions right now? And if you believe that is possible, I want you to work with us together, both to raise the money, but also to fight for it as we get the data to make sure that we, change the city budget, as Pastor Tucker mentioned, so that we invest actually in people, invest in a guaranteed basic income instead of maybe policing and jails, right? And so that the city budget reflects their desire to honor the dignity and humanity of people, and by there I want to say city council's desire to honor our dignity and humanity, because right now they are not doing that because they're obsessed with policing and jails. But I think like that's a part of it, and for me, it's really important that we gather our folks, and that, even some folks we poll and we talk to them, they like, oh, I don't think we need a guaranteed basic income. I think people need to work harder. My family, they'll say, a job is better than no job, right? So I've been working since I was like 14, and there are other people like that too.
Right.
But that's not necessarily true. Like a job that requires that you stand on your feet all day, and you have a back issue, and then you don't have health insurance, so you can't get the medical care you need, that's not better than any job, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that it's bringing those folks together and be like, what are your problems, and how would a guaranteed basic income address them? And then asking us and fighting with them. I think that is how we get the win. And using that, and I loved what the poet said. It's like, I think about, I wish my city council member actually experienced what we were going through, so they would fight just as hard. So I think it's like I think it's a number of different tactics, right? So it may be like, yo, let's get a city council member in there who needs a guaranteed basic income, so they're willing to fight for it. Let's organize people, right, who need a guaranteed basic income to fight for it, right, and to advocate for it. So that feels powerful and exciting to me.
Beautiful.
And it's not a giveaway.
Yes.
It's not a giveaway. And again, on how we're going to do the story, how do we tell this, how do we bring people in, it is not a giveaway. There are forces and powers that set up what it costs to live in Nashville, that none of us control. You just look at the way real estate has ran through the roof. You just look at the way that the city gears itself toward this it city. Let's keep our stuff under wraps as we entertain these people who come in. And so we have to make sure that we understand what a guaranteed basic income is. It's that folk are living below the poverty line, and many of them are hard-working folk.
Yes,
that I know them,
Yep.
that are, many of them are caught in the benefits cliff that says, yeah, while I'm trying to work these jobs, I really do need insurance for my kids. I really do need a good 401k myself. Well, you know, I really need help with this rent if I can stay, but there's this place where if I make too much money, you start taking other things away.
Right.
And it's hard to push a mother to say, insurance or clothes, insurance or housing. Those are choices that we ought not make.
Yep.
So, and then I just think too, and I'm grateful for you, Jamel, who you got the data. We see how folks, we don't blow money when we're giving money that we don't have.
We don't.
Everybody's just not going to go out and buy a weed bag with it. Everybody's just not going to go and do something crazy with it. Folk have dreams and aspirations too.
Yes.
And so I like the analogy of this idea of poor versus broke. I mean, I'd rather, if we look at this thing about being broke, because see, we've attached too many social stigmas to this thing called poor.
Yeah.
I mean, color slides up on poor, education slides up on poor. We got a whole lot of things that we can call folks for poor, but I know folks that are broke, they got education.
Yeah.
I know folks that are broke that come from two-parent homes. I know folks that are broke who did not come up over in Cheatham the way I did.
Right.
So I think, again, it's time for us to organize and redefine what it means to be America.
Well, yes.
So I could talk to y'all all day, but we're about to go on to a great performance. But before we do that, we ask every studio guest, what keeps you hopeful? Just what keeps you hopeful? Because I know a lot of the times, like, we are in the thick of it. We are close to our people. We know their issues. We talk to them every day. Yesterday, we was in the sun talking to folks.
Yes.
So what keeps you hopeful, real quick, before we move on?
Unfortunately, I don't know if there's a God, but I believe that there's one. And I say unfortunately, that because sometimes I don't want to.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not in my favor to. But because I just believe that it is, my hope goes on that it will get better. And when you start living on hope, it is the situation, it's the scarcity that fuels the hope. You know, if I had a guaranteed basic income, if I had housing, I don't need hope in those areas. It's in those places of lack in my life that either I throw my hands up or I put my head down and keep digging. And again, unfortunately, I choose to keep my head down and keep digging.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, too.
Yes. Yeah. whenever I'm with Pastor Tucker, he always preaches to me. I'm like, yes, hope requires like discipline and rigor. And I'm like, oh, I want to be disciplined enough to see the hope. And I'll be quick. I find hope in the work that Jamel and Reed are doing to get a guaranteed basic income, and that there are other movement organizations, advocates, organizers, even elected officials who are also committed to that work with you, so that we can actually transform our city.
And these are two of the folks that are committed to organizing with us. I also wanted to say, like, before we move on real fast, and before we give it up to our two guests, I'm gonna ask for folks in the audience to repeat after me. You can also repeat after me on if you're up here. You ready? Use your outside voice. We will win. We will win. And I think that's important. And if you did that at home, thank you. I think that's important to center that we will win, and we know that. Right? We know that we will win. We know that we'll get this guaranteed basic income off the ground. We know that we'll be able to invest directly into the people who are struggling with poverty in North Nashville, and we know that that's going to lead to a greater win that we might not even be able to see at this point in time. So, with that being said, please give it up for our two great guests. Yeah. They did a great. So, next up, sit back. We have a quick audio. We have a quick visual, little video production that we put together that will simply break down what a guaranteed basic income is, how it'll affect our local community members, and how we can rely on it moving forward. It's a real quick video. Then, after that video, we have a great performance coming from Saaneah, and that is going to be amazing, and you're going to want to see that. Thank you.
North Nashville is Nashville's soul. And Nashville dead-ended it when it built Interstate 40 through its heart. Moving Nashville Forward is launching a guaranteed basic income pilot to disrupt poverty in our city. Starting in the 37208 zip code, North Nashville, where we can begin to address this harm. The interstate permanently scarred and isolated the area. 80% of Black-owned businesses in Nashville closed as a result, devastating it economically and creating the conditions of poverty there today. North Nashville has an average income of less than half of Nashville's living wage. Families are struggling with the impact of decades of over-policing, the aftermath of a tornado, and rapid gentrification. They lack access to jobs that pay a living wage, healthcare, and social services. We can change this by investing in the people of North Nashville. Like similar experiments in this country and around the world, the 37208 demonstration will offer direct cash transfers and track their impact on people and the community. For a family living in poverty, this means the ability to pay bills on time, to put food on the table, and to keep young people off the streets. It means the ability to plan for the future. With enough resources and support, we can begin to end poverty, starting in North Nashville. The 37208 demonstration will make North Nashville and Davidson County a model for a more prosperous future. Our findings will provide a roadmap to repeating this experiment and a plan to create more equitable cities. We can disrupt poverty in North Nashville and restore Nashville's soul. Support the 37208 demonstration by donating today.
Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good, yeah. Oh, I'm feeling good. Peace and love, y'all. I want you the right way. I want you, and I want you to want me too. Want you to want me too. Just like I want you. I want you, babe, the right way, baby. I want you, and I want you to want me too. I want you to want me too. Just like I want you. Ba-da-ba-da-ba. Hey, put your hands together. Yeah. This is off my EP, While You Wait. Here we go. Every time I see your face, I light up and my heart starts racing. Don't know how much I can take, 'cause I want you now. Try so hard to be calm and cool. I don't wanna look like no fool round you, but I can't hide the truth. I want you now. Don't you see me? Do you feel me? Do you hear me? That is clear to see. Oh, I'm falling for you, baby. Falling for you, honey. Falling for you, baby. And I want you now. Like this. Hey, put your hands up in the sky. Wave them oh so high. Ooh, want you now. Listen, I just wanna be close to you. Maybe do things lovers do. That's the question, I'm into you, and that I want you now. I'll be the girl that you never had. Give me a chance and you'll be so glad. I'll treat you so good in every way. Want you now. Don't you see me? Do you hear me? Do you feel me? That is clear, yeah, to see. I'm falling for you, baby. Falling for you, honey. Falling for you, baby. And I want you now. Boy, I need you now. Got to have you now. Boy, I want you now. When I say peace, y'all say love. Peace and, peace and. My name is Saaneah, and I'm so glad to be here to support such an amazing cause. Thank you, Nashville Forward. Thank you, Third Man Records. I just want people to know that it's so important to be a light. We need more light in this world. Ain't that right? Hallelujah. So remember these words when I sing it. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Ooh, shine bright like a diamond. Fine light in a beautiful sea. I choose to be happy. You and I will but like diamonds in the sky. You're a shooting star I see, a vision of ecstasy. When you hold me, I'm alive, but like diamonds in the sky. I knew that we'd become one right away. Oh, right away. At first sight, I found the remedy of sun rays. I saw the light inside you. You and I, we're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. I too, so alive. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Whoa. Shine bright like a diamond, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Street light people. Thank y'all so much. Again, my name is Saaneah. That's Saaneah. This is the last song off of my EP, debut EP, While You Wait. You can find it everywhere. This is Just Try Me. Overanalyzing all up in your head. You can't even hear anything I said. You already blocking before I can get in. Overly self-conscious, never confident. Am I the only one who knows that we got something special? If not, then let's go ahead and put the pedal to the metal. Don't put me in the category of people from your past. Let's create a better story, something that'll last. Baby, just try me. I promise I won't bite. Baby, just try me. Stop putting up such a fight. I know you've been through some storms in your life that keep you from opening up your heart. But don't let it hinder the light between you and I. You've gotta get out of the dark. Baby, just try me. You know what I'm talking about? Hey. Baby, just try me. Baby, try me. Baby, try me. I'll be your light. I'll be your light. Just try me. I promise I won't bite. Baby, just try me. Stop putting up such a fight. I know you've been through some storms in your life that keep you from opening up your heart. But don't let it hinder the light between you and I. You've gotta get out of the dark. Baby, just try me. Oh, baby, just try me. Oh, I just want you to know, if only you knew how much I do love you. I love you.
Keep them applause going. Keep them applause going. Give them some noise. Make them some noise. Make them some noise. Shout out. Shout out to y'all. Y'all killed that.
Thank you.
Give
it
it
up for my band.
Give it up for the band one more time. Give it up for the band.
We got Zion on keys. And I'm Saaneah. Thank y'all so much.
For sure. Also, give it up for everyone that contributed to today's. The Third Man staff, Blue Room, the folks who sat on the couch, Erica Perry, Davie Tucker, everybody. Shout out to y'all. We're going to get this guaranteed basic income done. So if anything moved you about today, feel free to donate to Moving Nashville Forward. Please do it, because this is going to be done with people power. Move with us.
Yes.
We have another one coming up soon, another Sunday school next month, the last Sunday of August 29th. I want to invite you. Come jam out with us again. We'll have another performance. Oh, happy birthday, yo.
My birthday, so y'all make sure y'all represent for North Nashville
Come
community
through.
and donate. Yeah.
For sure, come through. Also, we have Income Movement Festival. That's going to be a national festival here to celebrate getting the guaranteed basic income done in Nashville on September 19th. Keep a lookout. Mark your calendars for those. Also, follow us on all socials. Nashville Forward, okay? We love you. We appreciate you. We're going to get this guaranteed basic income done, y'all. We're going to get it done, all right? So, see y'all here next time. Check back in with us. Let's get this done, y'all. Let's get it.
Let's get it.